Hi, everyone. I'm Don Rooney.
And I'm John Timpane.
Welcome to the musical Innertube, the podcast born out of a mistake.
We once meant to introduce a soothing musical interlude, but we said soothing musical Innertube, and the name stuck.
On this podcast, we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, jobs, hobbies, and passions.
Difference makers who really make a difference. Award-winning author Frances Metzman had her smiling face splashed across a great big billboard in Times Square, New York City recently, all about her new novel, The Cha-Cha Babes Dance with the Devil. It's a tale of two seriously brave and crazy women as they try to crack an international slavery ring while hiding deep in the bowels of a Philadelphia hospital, as one does. Fran is a fiction editor for Schuylkill Valley Journal and a freelance editor. She has published numerous short stories, essays, articles, interviews, 3 novels, and a short story collection. Her novels, The Cha-Cha Babes of Pelican Way and The Cha-Cha Babes Dance with the Devil, were bestsellers on Amazon in 2019 and 2023, respectively. She teaches creative writing and memoir at Temple University's OLLI program. Frances Metzman, you are our guest today on the musical Innertube. Welcome, Fran.
Hi, friend.
Introduce us to the Cha-Cha Babes, Celia and Marcy. I'd like to get a little bit of their backstory. A lot of people who will read this new book, The Cha-Cha Babes Dance with the Devil, may not have read the first crazy novel, The Cha-Cha Babes of Pelican Way. Talk about Celia and Marcy. What are they doing in Philly? And so forth and so on.
Okay. They do have history. Both women met at a gated community in Florida where, as older boomers, they wanted to start new lives. Both had very dysfunctional backgrounds and were in the face of trying to recover. Celia, who is the main character, had a very insulated life, controlling parents, emotionally distant, and went into a marriage pretty much the same way, the same kind of environment, which we often do marry our parents. So I felt that these women, as I get older, I find women's friendships very, very important. More important by the day. We do have family. We love them. They're part of our lives. They come first. But secondarily, and a close second, are these friendships. And so in this community, they meet. In the first novel, there was another woman who was a little bit more frail than these two, but they all met dancing cha-cha, learning how to cha-cha. And that's where we get this, Florida cha-cha kind of vibe. So, but they want to discover themselves. They want to start new lives. There are outliers in these communities. I've been in several of these gated communities in Florida, and there are cliques. So because there's a certain independence and because they don't follow the unwritten laws of behavior for women, they're kind of kept out of the mainstream. And actually, they're treated meanly. So these women, in their quest to discover who they are, how they will manage this new life, how they can get out of the past eggshell that they've lived in. Marcy, the secondary character, also, she had abusive parents. So here they have this connection of abusive backgrounds or dysfunctional backgrounds, whatever you want to call it. And they're both struggling to find new ways of communicating and finding a happy way of life. So they also wind up getting into a lot of trouble. They are magnets for difficulty. So there's this strange...
Sure are.
Yeah, right. So in the first novel, they wind up in a series of deaths. that they find suspicious, but I'll talk about what happens in Dance with the Devil, because that's kind of foremost right now. In Dance with the Devil, Deb, for reasons you will know when you read the first book of Pelican Way, is not in this book. She'll come back in the third. But these women, again, haven't really quite progressed the way they wanted to. They did grow developing sleuthing talent. So now they wind up at a bar. Marcy has a big mouth. She's the sexy one. And she gets into trouble because the atmosphere of this bar, they're on their way to Celia's daughter's house for a visit in Philadelphia. But at this bar, Marcy takes what Celia says about the odd thing, very young women, gorgeous women with men who are in their pinstripes business suits with their accounts, but that buying food and lobsters, but the women look dazed, and Celia notices that one is kind of almost dragged to the elevator of this boutique hotel within the bar. So Marcy opens her mouth to the bartenders, who are obviously giving numbers out to these men, fixing them up. The women are obviously drugged, and they drug these two women. Next thing they wake up, they're in the mess of a huge, haunted almost mansion.
These are our heroines, right? These are our heroines, Celia and Marcy, right? They get drugged.
They get drugged, yes.
Yes.
Because Marcy, who has a big mouth in her head, on her tongue, got them into trouble. So they wake up in a serious situation. They're tied to chairs, and they are approached by a guy who calls himself a mafia boss.
Uh-oh.
And says, tells them that he's a big owner of sex slaves. And they make, it's about 150 billion a year worldwide, but that's not the exact amount. A lot of cash. So they're told that they have to be madams, which really means spies for the women and children. The children can be as young as 4, 3, it doesn't matter. They're prizes in this sex trafficking. It's a horrible, really horrible thing. I wrote an article about it a number of years ago and never forgot it. But talking to people over the years, realize nobody really knows the depth of this, where women are transferred in containers on ships with very little air and food, and they have been tattooed on the back of their necks so that they're identified as to which mafia group they belong to. This is the area that is this worldwide mafia conglomeration, whereas one of the only times they all cooperate with each other is not known. Yes, we get the Jeffrey Epsteins. To me, in my opinion, although they do a tremendous amount of damage, they're small potatoes in this giant scheme that we never hear about.
Fran, you've answered my second question,
Oh,
which is, no, it's good. Yeah, it's great. So Celia and Marcy, we're not going to give everything away, but Celia and Marcy land in the midst of slave trafficking, international slave trafficking. You've named an incredible figure of 150 billion at least that this industry earns, if you'll use the word for it, throughout the world. How did you first learn? One of the things about this novel is that it's really topical in this sense. It really gives us an insight into how these men mostly find and capture and kidnap and traffic the women that they do. How did you first come upon your knowledge of all this?
I I think I have to attribute it to my background of knowing people, professional people, the high executives, business people who committed white collar crime when they don't have to, because they can earn a great deal of money. I've known some I've known tangentially. One of them was my husband's friend. So,
See, I was just going to ask you if you'd been a professional sleuth yourself.
well, at least from a distance. If I could turn any of them in, I would.
Yeah.
But they kind of, they make the kind of mistakes that get them caught. I'm talking about doctors, lawyers, insurance executive, a man who inherited a huge business. No need to commit fraud, but there's some psychological need for power maybe over people. So that got me started. I read about it. I became obsessed about it, wanting to know the reasons they do it. And it happened on sex trafficking. That really drew me in. It was so abhorrent, they take women from poverty-ridden countries, promise them jobs, and then they kidnap them and keep them in these apartments and houses as slaves. They're in massage parlors. They're distributed all over. They're at sports events. They're brought in groups to sports events. It's a big, big business. And the only thing, I don't mind prostitution, fine, make it legal. But these women are captured and they are truly slaves. And
it's definitely a woman's rights issue.
Yeah, it is indeed. So that's how I came upon it. And I stayed with it. I kept looking. I kept asking people, do you know about it? No, it's not here, kind of thing. We have big hubs, California, Florida, Texas. And Philadelphia is no slouch.
No.
We have the harbor. We get the containers. They're x-rayed. Somehow they seem to, I'm not making any accusations, but maybe it's accidental. They get missed, or else they've arranged the items inside so that the women are hidden. They have it down to a science, and they're brought in. And here in this country, the kids coming out of foster care who have aged out, they're a great target.
Yeah.
Because they have no home, they have no skills, and they become enslaved as well. Children, very young children. So, I mean, it really got to me. It really was so upsetting.
So, all the time we've been talking about this, your editor, Joy Stocky, has been listening at the United Lounge at O'Hare Airport, Chicago. And Joy, when you first learned what Fran was going to write about in this follow-up novel to the first Cha-Cha Babes book, what did you think? What went through your mind?
Well, Fran and I have been friends and partners in crime for over, and I shouldn't say how long, but that's how long it is. And so Fran is really an interesting person. She's always writing about something, but this topic unnerved me a little. And the reason is, if you're going to put it into a novel, it's a really serious topic. I know our Cha-Cha Babes. How was she going to pull this one off? How can you, because her books have a lot of humor in them. That is one of Fran's talents, is to take something and not make it funny in the sense of we're making fun of something, but to give us a little levity. I think that's Fran's real gift. So the question was, how was Fran going to pull that off? And what was the writing process going to be? And it was a long process, I will say.
Right. And there's so many different scenes and different facets of the industry that have to be addressed if you're going to give a persuasive picture of it. It's really not the kind of thing that you can sort of do an outline of and make it work in fiction. You're going to have to, right? It's going to have to live somehow.
I deliberately did not want it documentary style, where I'm just preaching. I needed these women to be real, in a real situation where they go into hiding and they still have families. The daughter becomes involved. Her romantic interest becomes involved, and they're living in a hideout. I won't tell you where the hideout is or what it is, but it is different. And so, they needed to have some levity, so a little dark humor, if you will, and relationships. They still had family. They still had memories of a past. It's not like people go into a bad situation and are kind of isolated and just only think about their problems. They have a life. They had a life. And so that kind of continues. And that's what I wanted. Friendship, family, older romance. So I kind of connect to being in this difficult situation.
We'll be back to our podcast in just a moment, but first, here is a soothing musical interlude.
Fran Metzman is a Philadelphia-based author, editor, and teacher. She has published numerous short stories, essays, articles, interviews, 3 novels, and a short story collection.
Her newest novel, The Cha-Cha Babes Dance with the Devil, is the second in a series of Cha-Cha Babes novels starring her heroines, Celia, Marcy, and sometimes Deb.
Fran is a fiction editor for the Schuylkill Valley Journal, a teacher of creative writing and memoir at Temple University's OLLI program, and a freelance editor. Her Cha-Cha Babes books are published by Tree of Life Books.
For more about Fran Metzman, check out her website, francismetzman.com. That's FrancisMetzman.com.
And we now return you to the musical Innertube already in progress.
Don, how about you ask a question for a moment?
Fran, when I read the books, I read both of the novels back to back, and subject matter in both is very serious, but the overlying setup is very much like something that you would see on TV. Okay, I'm going to come right out and say it. I had Golden Girls on my mind the whole time I was reading the book.
The Golden Girls, maybe somewhere in my unconscious. You never know with writing. What comes out, sometimes you say, who wrote that? And there's a channeling when you write, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've always thought of it as a channeling once you get into that rhythm into your unconscious, which in a way is like cheap therapy. That's what the Freudian therapy is always trying to do. You can do it by writing.
Also, in both books, there is, you had mentioned earlier about research. There is an awful lot about a huge variety of things. In the first book, there's references to medical and financial and police procedure. And in this one here, there's obviously more police procedure, but also a little bit of a taste of the underworld, if you will. How did your research bring you to those topics and ways to flesh out the novel?
Oh, that's a giant question. But now I was
That's okay.
born
We'll take a giant answer.
I was raised in South Philadelphia, so not that, the sections were very divided by religion. You're the Italian section, Jewish section, but we knew about the mafia that kind of had at that time had not bought maybe a lot of mansions, and they were in South Philly, maybe the lower level mafia. So I had that kind of mental connection. Plus, I'm sure I feel sure about, that my background over the years, I came from a poor background into an upper middle class background. My husband was a physician. We lived in maybe, more expensive locations. So I come from both sides in a way. What shocked me is when I was poor, I didn't hear about any kind of white collar crime. We admired even the real estate agents. We thought that they were big deals. I come into this new world, where there are upper middle class people and they're committing all kinds of white collar crime. Not all, of course. I once sat down and figured out I either knew or was slightly familiar with 26 people that had committed white collar crime. Some just had their licenses, taken away and then were given back. But my shock, this culture shock, set me into this world of why do they do it? I asked someone, my husband's friend, and he said, I don't know. And rich he could buy the Rittenhouse Square out, had a yacht and whatnot, and he didn't know why he did it. He had committed little crimes along the way until the major one got him into Allenwood. So it's that kind of what is going on here.
Sure. It's so interesting that you say this because it wasn't until I started working in Philadelphia myself that I got to know and be pretty chummy with people who later I found out were doing the kinds of things you're talking about. I don't know whether it's Philadelphia or whether this is just life as lived, that there are people all around us and we can't know which of us are being white collar criminals. I guess most of them don't get caught, but those who do, it makes the papers, and it does seem like a very pervasive kind of crime. And of course, white collar crime is involved in trafficking because it's the source of the monetary backing. It's the source of the finances. It's sort of the sluice way, as you show, for the money. So what we're looking at is the dark underbelly, if you will, of white collar crime.
Right. And that's what fascinated me and brought me to this more serious subject. But still, there are people who, they have a decision. They can go back to Florida.
Right.
Once they escape.
Celia and Marcy can, and actually I was going to ask you that question is they have a choice. Actually, they could say the heck with this. I'm going back to Florida. And I think it's interesting how you handle that. Please tell us a little more.
Yeah, they talk about it. They're on the run, but they're so appalled by this world that they've discovered of sex trafficking and what part sometimes women might play as, what do they call them? The groomers
Yes.
who are spying on these women to find out who's plotting to leave. And, so they're so appalled by it that they are women who trust each other. They have they have each other's backs. They care about each other. They care about truth. They do have good qualities that make them decide to find some justice. They know they can't cure it. They're not going to be able to get more than a little tiny scratch, but they decide that they really want to help these people, whatever, by exposing it, and they stay and find a place to hide and then go through their sleuthing to find out who these people are, and strangely enough, one of the mafia people happens to be close to their hiding place, not knowing. And so they're able to do, and they're able to, use, Celia's romantic interest has joined them, and he is, a high tech person. So he helps them, teaches them about computers. They do a lot of research, like I had to do. So I punished them. I made them do the research too, that they had to, Jim, stay on that computer. And so, they do it out of the goodness of their hearts, that this is too big and too debilitating and dehumanizing. And so then they're not quite like the Golden Girls in that sense. Although the Golden Girls did have big hearts and help people.
Well, but the other thing too is that these ladies, as you said, have a lifetime behind them of really not doing much other than being housewives and mothers and that sort of thing, and now they are, for all intents and purposes, free and on their own, and they're kind of reveling in it, but they are ordinary people. And they make decisions, very deliberate decisions, to put themselves in harm's way. So that's kind of, I don't know, an interesting point to that. And that is that they don't necessarily have skills. It's not like Columbo going out with detective knowledge or anything like that. These are just ordinary people that throw themselves on the railroad tracks and hope for the best.
A little unbelievable, maybe? Is that?
I don't know if it's unbelievable because they don't necessarily show any real superpowers, if you will, or that kind of thing. But they do go through a litany of, like you said, they do the research and they're very deliberate in how they take down the criminals in both your books. So they sort of use logic, if you will,
Right.
As opposed to anything really spectacular. And that sort of says something too about the characters.
Yeah, that's one of the, that is kind of in a way deliberate, because these women are coming from an era, before women's lib, are on the edge of women's lib, but they were both so hurt by backgrounds that they followed the rules. They tried to follow the rules. Women's role. Not that their smarts never came out because, I remember reading a long time ago in a magazine, a woman's magazine, don't let him know you can do math. Don't beat him at tennis, Seriously, I did read this, make a little cocoon when he comes home from work. And I started the world this way in many ways. And so I wanted to show how women can become powerful, how they can develop on their own once they realize that they've been isolated and insulated and that they have the smarts. It's just been smothered. That's what women did. They smothered their smarts. And this is a development. They're now friends. They help each other get more powerful. They have each other's backs. They work together and they do become women of intelligence and good sense and finding justice, and charitable. So that was an intent.
Sure, of course.
Because I'm from that era,
You're getting back.
I made the martini.
You're using art to get your revenge, Fran. This is what it is.
Maybe a little wish fulfillment too. You never know about that.
Yep. There's a lot of layers in here, and why, and when we write, a lot of layers. And so, as I said, what's down there in that unconscious, we're bringing it out. And right.
What are you going to do for your next Cha Cha Babes book? I really have to ask. I know you don't want to let the cat out of the bag just yet, but I'd just like to know where Celia and Marcy will head off to next.
Okay. They go back to Florida and Deb joins them. And there is a very specific reason why she was not in the second book, which you have to read the first book to find out. So they're now in Florida, and you see the interaction of the three women. Deb, the most potent muscle she has is her tongue. It's in her, she and Marcy kind of taunt each other in a playful way, and they join a non-religious group that has gotten together. They're mostly upper middle class, and they want a community of people who want justice. It's just up their alley, who, not that the group does all that much, but they try. They want diversity, and yet the group's kind of solidly white. And, but the intent of this group appeals to them. They stand up, they talk about what's bothering them, what they like. They can make concessions. Everybody gets a chance to speak to this group. But you can be religious, doesn't matter. You're welcome. You can hold on to your own religion. So that's maybe all I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
And there's a lot of mystery and secret.
Well, Fran Metzman, you are our favorite octogenarian novelist. And I'll say the list isn't that long. In fact, you are the list. You are you are the one octogenarian novelist that we've had on this podcast, and you're the best one, and you're our favorite one. And we thank you for coming on the Musical Innertube. We also thank your editor, Joy Stocky, who called us all the way from Chicago. She's about to get on a plane. I think she's getting on right now. And she really wanted to be part of this, and she was for a bit. So we thank her for being on here. And when you get that next book out and your face is once again in lights in Times Square, we'll have you back on.
Even if I'm 90, right?
Yes. Yes. Doesn't matter.
Then you'll be our favorite non-genarian author.
I love it. Yeah.
Goes that way.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, a friend of mine, when I had my birthday, wrote to me and said, I know how old you are, because we went all the way back. And I said, are you kidding? The world knows how old I am, because just Google it. Everybody's age, it's on there.
You can ask Alexa. And she'll tell you how old your friends are.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I've done that. I like Alexa because when I last asked her, she said John Payne is 39.
So the bribery paid off. Yeah. Okay, here's something you probably don't know, but when you get if you're on Facebook and you get the little notification that it's your friend's birthday, they tell you on Facebook how old the friend is. So
really,
beware of that.
Yeah.
Beware of that.
How do you find out? You go in?
No, it says John Payne is having a birthday, and up in the corner it says he's 850 years old, or whatever the actual number is. So just be aware of that when you go on Facebook.
But both in the fact that you've written these novels and that your characters are women of a certain age, as they might say in Paris, but do things that do change things around them. They don't change the world en masse, because that's not what we're up to. They're trying to save a few women and risk their necks doing so, and that's what makes Cha-Cha Babes Dance with the Devil so much fun. So thank you for being on the Musical Innertube, Fran Metzman.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And just a quick little note. That's really why I wanted to write about older women, to show the older population. Don't sit on your butt and be a couch potato. Get out there. There's so much to learn and do. And it just keeps hopefully it's going to help with Alzheimer's, that I don't get it too bad. So, yeah, but it was really also in the back of my mind that, come on, you don't have to follow all the rules and regulations and
exactly.
Older people, or you have to keep, not be politically too outlandish. Do it. That's my last note.
Thank you very much, Fran.
Thank you guys, and thank you so much. And my birthday, we'll have another interview, and you can have a cake for me.
Okay. Deal.
Or champagne.
Or both.
Or both, yes, definitely.
And thank you for listening to the Musical Innertube.
Hey, let us know how we're doing. Send us an email at musicalinnertube, all one word, @gmail.com.
Do you know someone with a great story to tell? Let us know. Send us an email or log in to our website, musicalinnertube.com, and click on the microphone in the lower right-hand corner to leave us a voicemail.
And while you're on our website, take a few minutes to listen to past episodes of the podcast. They're all there, along with pictures and biographies of our guests, blog posts, and lots more.
And as always, our thanks to virtual band Car Radio Dog for providing us with our theme music.